9 justices, 0 disagreement. The Supreme Court of the United States just issued what legal scholars are widely describing as one of the most significant rulings affecting government power in decades. And it was unanimous. Every justice, every ideology, one decision. What they ruled on reaches directly into the retirement security of millions of Americans receiving Social Security benefits right now. All 50 states, tens of millions of people. And the vast majority of them still have not heard a clear explanation of what this means for their monthly check, their legal rights, or their options moving forward. This is not a political story. It is not left versus right. It is a legal ruling, and it changes what happens when you challenge a government decision about your benefits in court. The standard has shifted, and it shifted in your favor. Starting now. There is one specific legal phrase embedded in this ruling that matters more than any other part of it. I will come back to that. But first, here is the scale of what just changed. You just heard the ruling. Here is who is going to explain exactly what it means for you. I'm John. This is Law Shield USA. Every week on this channel, we break down the exact laws, rulings, and legal rights that protect everyday Americans from government systems most people do not fully understand. If you are currently receiving Social Security benefits, or if you have ever had a claim denied, reduced, or delayed without a clear explanation, stay with me. Because in the next 10 minutes, you are going to find out exactly what the law now says you are entitled to, and what you can do about it starting today. Over 70 million Americans receive Social Security benefits right now. Retirement benefits, disability benefits, survivor benefits. For most of them, that monthly payment is not supplemental income. It is the income, the difference between stability and hardship. And for decades, the agency responsible for deciding those benefit amounts operated under a legal framework that gave it enormous power inside the courts. When there was ambiguity in the law, unclear language, gray areas, conflicting interpretations, the Social Security Administration often received judicial deference. Courts frequently accepted the agency's interpretation instead of independently deciding what the law meant themselves. This is about your money, the money you spent a lifetime earning the right to receive. That framework meant that when the agency made a decision reducing your benefit or denying your claim, and you challenged that decision in court, judges often began from a position that favored the agency's interpretation, not neutrality, deference. This ruling affects 3 specific categories of Social Security benefits. Most coverage is only mentioning one. By the end of this video, you will know all 3. Stay with this. The next section covers the part of this ruling that almost no coverage is explaining clearly. Here is what the Supreme Court actually decided. For decades, a legal doctrine called the Chevron doctrine governed the relationship between federal agencies and the courts. The Chevron doctrine, established in 1984, generally instructed federal judges to defer to a government agency's interpretation of ambiguous laws that agency administered, as long as the interpretation was considered reasonable. In other words, when Social Security law was unclear, the agency often had significant influence over how that law would be interpreted in practice. And this is where it becomes important for your specific situation. That arrangement meant the agency was operating inside a system where courts frequently deferred to its legal interpretation during disputes over benefits. The Supreme Court has now ended that framework completely. In a ruling called Loper Bright Enterprises v. Raimondo, all 9 justices agreed that courts must independently determine what the law means. The agency's interpretation is no longer automatically accepted simply because the law is ambiguous. That is the legal phrase that matters more than any other part of this ruling. Independent judicial determination. Courts must now read the law themselves, interpret it themselves, apply it themselves. There is one more layer to this that almost no coverage is addressing, and it is the layer that affects the most people directly. But here is what changes right now. Under the framework established by this ruling, If the Social Security Administration makes a decision that reduces or denies your benefit, and that decision depends on the agency's interpretation of unclear legal language, a reviewing court must now make its own independent legal determination. That protection applies to your situation. This is a legal right most people were never clearly told existed. Now, a fair question at this point is this: if courts were always supposed to be independent, why did this doctrine exist for 40 years without anyone stopping it? That is a legitimate question. The short answer is simple. Federal agencies benefited from the system. Now let me show you exactly how. We are halfway through, and this next section shows you exactly why that mattered, and why it matters directly to your benefits today. The Chevron framework survived for 40 years largely because it gave federal agencies a major structural advantage. When an agency administers programs like Social Security, Medicare, or veterans benefits, it processes millions of decisions every year. Having broad authority to interpret what the rules mean is not just administratively useful. It becomes a major advantage in disputes, appeals, and court challenges. According to legal scholars who have studied this ruling, the Chevron framework allowed agencies to adopt broader readings of what the law allowed them to do. Readings that, in some cases, reduced benefit amounts, narrowed eligibility standards, or created procedural barriers ordinary Americans struggled to overcome. The agency understood how this system worked. Administrative law judges inside the Social Security Administration operated under a framework where courts frequently deferred to the agency's interpretation. That presumption is now gone. That is why most people never heard this explained clearly. The system was designed to process claims efficiently, on the agency's terms, and this reaches directly into your benefits, not someone else's, yours. Before I get to the exact steps you can take, and this is the section most coverage skips entirely, there are 3 specific benefit categories where this ruling may have the strongest impact, and one of them affects far more people than the others. Before we finish, this next section covers the exact steps and the exact agency you should contact. This is the most practically important part of the video. The 3 benefit categories most directly affected by this ruling. 1. Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI. Denial rates for SSDI applications have historically been high. Many denials involve disputes over how medical and functional criteria are interpreted under the law. Courts reviewing those denials must now apply independent legal analysis. If you were denied SSDI and believe the legal standard was applied incorrectly, your legal footing may now be stronger than before. 2. Survivor benefits. The rules governing survivor benefits contain interpretive gray areas involving marriage duration, claim timing, and benefit coordination. Those gray areas are no longer automatically resolved in favor of the agency's interpretation. 3. Retirement benefit reduction rules. Complex provisions involving early retirement claims, pension offsets, and non-covered employment have generated years of agency interpretation. Some of those interpretations have affected retirees by thousands of dollars per year. Those interpretations are now subject to independent judicial review. No agency was going to hand you this information. But it is right there in federal law. Here are your next steps. Step 1. If you currently have a pending appeal with the Social Security Administration, do not withdraw it. This ruling changes the legal framework courts use when reviewing agency interpretations. Step 2. Visit SSA.gov and request your full benefit statement and claims history. Know exactly what decisions have been made about your account and when. Step 3. If you have had a claim denied within the last 12 months, consider speaking with a licensed Social Security attorney for a case review. Many attorneys work on contingency, meaning no payment unless you win. Step 4. Document everything. Every letter from the SSA. Every decision. Every date. If you pursue a legal challenge, that paper trail matters. Step 5. For official information regarding your benefits and appeals, visit SSA.gov. The Supreme Court's published opinion is available through supremecourt.gov. If this describes your situation, and for millions of Americans it does, what comes next is the most important part of this video. 9 justices, 0 disagreement, that is where we started. And now you know what it means. For 4 decades, federal agencies operated inside a legal framework where courts often deferred to the agency's interpretation of unclear laws. That arrangement is now over. Courts must independently determine what the law says. Every pending challenge, every new case, every future benefits dispute now moves through a system with stronger judicial oversight than before. 70 million Americans are affected, all 50 states, and the vast majority still have not heard this explained clearly. Now you have. They never told you this, but the law did. This is Law Shield USA. Every week we cover one right, one law, one ruling that the system counted on you never finding. If that matters to you, subscribe, because next week we are covering the Social Security Windfall Elimination provision, what it is, who it affects, and what the current legal challenges could mean for teachers, firefighters, and government workers whose benefits have been reduced for decades. And if someone you know receives Social Security benefits and has never heard this explained clearly, send this video to them. This may be the information they needed. Quick note: everything in this video is general educational information only. It is not legal advice. Laws can vary based on your specific circumstances. If you need help with your situation, speak with a licensed attorney.